Hello, everybody. Ross Madden here. Welcome to the show. We've got a big story today. The EU has slapped Google with a $5 billion fine. Let's get into it. All right. So, Antitrust Commission fines Google 4.34 billion euros, which is $5 billion, for illegal practices regarding Android mobile devices to strengthen dominance of Google's search engine. To set this up, it's important to note that today about 80% of smart mobile devices in Europe and worldwide run on Android operating system. Now, in particular, Google has required manufacturers to pre-install the Google Search app and browser app, that's Chrome, as a condition for licensing the Google App Store, which is called the Play Store or Google Play. They've made payments to certain large manufacturers and mobile network operators on the condition that they exclusively pre-install the Google Search app on their devices. And thirdly, they have prevented manufacturers wishing to pre-install Google apps from selling even a single smart mobile device running on alternative versions of Android that were not approved by Google, otherwise known as Android forks. Google makes their Android operating system open source online. So there are many people who download it, alter it, upload new operating systems, or just put that on their devices. But no device makers are allowed to then sell a improved Google operating system. Scrolling down, according to the EU Commission for Competition, Google is dominant in three main areas: general internet search services, that would be the Google search system; licensable smart mobile operating systems, that's the Android operating system; and app stores for the Android mobile operating system. So the apps, once you are on an Android phone, is pretty much exclusively sold via the Android Google Play store. So basically, if there was a low barrier of entry, you can't really complain about there being an antitrust violation. They had to, and by they I mean the Commission against for Competition, had to make an argument that there was a high barrier of entry for not just the general search services, which I'm not sure I agree with. I'm pretty sure that anybody can make a search engine and compete with Google. It's just very difficult because theirs is very good. Right now, like Bing's terrible. No one really uses other search engines unless you are using DuckDuckGo because you like the privacy. That's another great reason to use an alternate search engine. They also have dominance in the licensable smart mobile operating systems. So basically, they have a dominance. Most devices use the Google Android operating system. 80% of Europeans, 85% of the world if you exclude China. Actually, no, it's 95% of the world uses the Google operating system if you exclude China. So it's very dominant worldwide, and 80% even in the EU is enough to say this is an antitrust violation. The second one, they're paying different device makers to use the Google operating system, effectively raising the barrier of entry for other device makers, for other operating systems to compete with the Google operating system, with the Android operating system. If you want to convince a device company to use your operating system, you then have to shell out a ton of money, just like Google did, in order to convince them. So that is raising the barrier of entry, and that does make the operating system a violation of antitrust, in my opinion. And so I'm going to agree with them in that case. And then the third instance was, once you are using the Google operating system as a device maker, you are exclusively required to produce Android operating phones. You're not allowed to produce anything that was made that is not Google approved. So if you want to be a part of the vast majority of the market, of the device making market, of the app store market, then you have to use Google, and you can't produce any other phones using any other operating systems. So that is why this is an antitrust violation. There are two main companies that really dominate the mobile phone market. We've got Apple and we've got Google and Android, and that is pretty much it. And Apple serves the high-end market, which means that a lot of the people on the lower end, if you're just getting a cheaper phone, you're pretty much required to get a Google phone. And this has all been wrapped up by one Margrethe Vestager, or Vestager. I'm not exactly sure how they pronounce it in the Danish language. But she has been described as the rich world's most powerful trust buster. She is currently the European Commissioner for Competition since 2014, and she has been going after largely American companies. So scrolling down right here, she went after Cyprus Airways, but only got $65 million. Here we go. On the 29th of August, 2016, after a 2-year investigation, Vestager announced Apple Inc. received undue benefits from Ireland, tax benefits, and they had to pay $13 billion in unpaid Irish taxes. So that was the biggest tax fine in history. And then in July 2017, a fine of $2.7 billion was levied against Alphabet, formerly known as Google. Well, it's actually the Google parent company, based on the European Commission claim that Google breached antitrust rules. But that fine was later appealed. So the $2.7 billion, I don't think was ever paid. So this $5 billion fine is actually payback for skipping out on the $2.7 billion fine. But nonetheless, Vestager seems to be going after Alphabet and going after Google.
Today, the Commission has decided to fine Google 4.34 billion euros for breaching EU antitrust rules. Google has engaged in illegal practices to cement its dominant market position in Internet search. It must put an effective end to this conduct within 90 days or face penalty payments. It has obstructed the development of competing mobile operating systems. These could have provided a platform for rival search engines to gain traffic. In this way, Google has used Android as a vehicle to cement its dominance as a search engine. These practices, they have denied rivals a chance to innovate and to compete on the merits. They have denied European consumers the benefit of effective competition in the very important mobile sphere. And this is illegal under EU antitrust rules.
Vestager seems to be going after Alphabet and going after Google, which I don't mind in the slightest. But the question is she going after American companies? I would say maybe she's going after the American stock market. This is still a trade war. This is a video I watched last night. Can you believe it? FANG is 98% of stock market gains. That is unbelievable. The amount of concentration of wealth of gains that makes our stock market look solid when it's actually falling apart is truly, it's astonishing. And I noted that Zuckerberg is dumping. The insiders are dumping their shares. I just want to take a look at the stock price of Google. Here's the 5-year. You can just see that it's been up and up and up and up. I mean, it has doubled, tripled over the last 5 years. And in the last year or so, it's been kind of bouncing around. But recently, since March at least, it has been rising steadily. And you can say pretty much the same with Facebook. Here's the 5-year. It's tripled or quadrupled in the last 5 years. And in the last 1 year, with exception to this one Cambridge Analytica dump right here in March, it has been pretty solid, and then of recent, climbing back up. So we're seeing a nice rise in the FANG stocks of recent, but notice that this happened March 16th. I just want to bring attention to these dates because they're very important. I did an entire report that I think most people just pretty much ignored. I never heard any congressman who grilled the people from Facebook or Google talk about this. This is a very important thing. Zuckerberg should have been asked about this, in my opinion. So in February, this is an article published on February 26, 2018. Mark Zuckerberg sold $356.8 million worth of Facebook shares this month, ramping up his regularly timed selling to fund his philanthropic efforts. So he ramped up his selling right before Facebook took a huge dive. Did he have insider information? Did he know that the Cambridge Analytica scandal was going to happen? In fact, I made the argument that he did because a vast majority of this 357 billion, about 250 of it, was made in just 9 days before the actual scandal broke. And that was actually 3 months of his, or 2.5 months of his regularly selling stock schedule. If you're an executive, you're required by law, insider trading law, to sell at a regular schedule. And if you want to change that, it's a very big deal. You have to make a big difference. You can't know that anything is going on within your company when you make a change. Well, he made his change just before the Cambridge Analytica scandal broke. That is a little curious. I think Mark Zuckerberg should be brought in front of Congress and asked about the insider trading. Because this is a big deal. This is our stock market. These FANG stocks represent 98% of our stock market gains. And now Mark Zuckerberg selling Facebook. There's the F. Vestager ordered Amazon to pay $250 million in back taxes. The G, one of the G's, the Google, is being hit with a $5 billion fine from the EU. Our stock market is under attack. And not to mention that interest rates are rising. That's going to put a pinch on the financial system, squeezing liquidity shut, and you could see major stock market crashes in the next coming weeks, days, even hours. The stock market opens in 1 hour, and I have heard that Google, Alphabet, is already down 0.4% in pre-market trading, which equates to about $11 billion. So $11 billion of Alphabet's valuation just got disappeared overnight because of this $5 billion fine. I think you're going to see a lot more selling of the Alphabet stock as antitrust becomes a big problem and Google gets called out for not just violating antitrust this time, but they also are getting called out last year for violating the antitrust when it comes to selling their, advertising their links, their Google shop ahead of other advertisers. So Google is going to start to get tossed under the bus, not just in the EU, but also in the eyes of public opinion. They are CIA connected, and many people are just sick and tired of them spying. The spy network that they have set up, they know your emails, they're into your Facebook. You can just click them for all your apps, and you see that little Google icon, that circle in all of the little, in all the corners of all of your different screens, and it just becomes all pervasive. Google's becoming all pervasive, and I think people are starting to get a little creeped out. You know, some people are getting used to it, but a lot of people are getting creeped out. And I'm still on the Google Chrome browser, so I have not kicked the old Android, Google, Alphabet monopoly, but I am looking towards operating systems, and if you have any suggestions for a good operating system, leave that in the comments below so that we can start to find alternatives to the Google monopoly. Let's give Margrethe Vestager, this fine lady, one last look. She is the one who charged $5 billion to the Google monopoly, and I hope that that's just the first of many fines. Google can go down. For all I'm concerned, I don't really care. And the stock market will suffer. I don't own stocks, and I don't suggest you own stocks either. This is not financial advice. But the stock market, in my opinion, in my non-professional opinion, is highly overvalued due to the financial liquidity provided by the massive amount of debt. And that is just a cause of low interest rates. So as those interest rates rise, that's going to disappear. And we're going to be looking at you, Powell. That's Fed Director Powell. As he raises interest rates and this stock market crashes, he's going to be coming up with every excuse in the book. He's going to be blaming the EU. He's going to be blaming Trump's trade wars. And this is really having to do with the interest rates, because before all of this happened, all of our gains were concentrated in just 4 or 5 companies. That is the result of really low interest rates and really concentrated betting of stock market gains. And in January 2018, under her leadership, the EU Commission fined Qualcomm nearly $1 billion. So Qualcomm was that company that Trump said he rejected the Chinese purchase of Qualcomm, saying that that would be a moving of our intellectual property from America to China, and that was something that he could not stand for. Well, it looks like Europe weakened Qualcomm's valuation right before this happened, basically giving a 1-2 punch to make Qualcomm a less valuable company, making it easier for China to acquire. And then Trump really did have to step in. There was an attack on Qualcomm to steal America's intellectual property. So thank you, Trump, for being the wise businessman and saving American intellectual property and saving Qualcomm. That's going to do it for us today. Please hit the subscribe. I don't have that many subscribers, and every single one makes me smile a little bit. So give me a subscriber, give me a like, and I hope you have a great day. Thanks for tuning in. Ross Madden with the Truth of Think Tank.